Okay, awesome. Well, thank you everybody so much for being here today. We are here to speak to you about majoring in language, modern languages at St. Edward's, and all of the wonderful opportunities that come with that. We are joined by Dr. Philippe Seminet, who is an associate professor of French and the department chair, Emily Bernate, who is the assistant professor of Spanish and linguistics, and senior Emily Persons, who is majoring in Spanish and French. So lots of language expertise here today. Just to begin with a little bit of housekeeping material. Philippe, if you could, there you go. The presentation will be around 30 minutes-ish, and then time for Q&A at the end. Please feel free to send questions in through the Q&A function as we go through the presentation. The chat won't be used, but if you have a question while we're going through, something occurs to you and you want to throw it in the chat, the Q&A, please feel free to do that. So with that, I will hand it off to Dr. Seminet to kick us off.
Bonjour, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on a Friday afternoon. We are excited to highlight our modern languages at St. Edward's University. And I'm going to be taking you through some slides, some of which I just plan to highlight. I don't want to dwell too long on them as they have considerable information, a few of them do. And I know this is being recorded and you'll have the opportunity to see it at some subsequent time if you would like on our YouTube channel. So we are the Department of Languages, Literatures, and Cultures. And as you heard, I am a associate professor of French. I am in my 11th year now at St. Edward's University. I'm a graduate of the area. I did my PhD at the University of Texas, a master's degree at the University of Florida in French, and I actually did a bachelor's degree in philosophy at New College of Florida, which is a small university, a bit like St. Edward's in some respects. So I've had an opportunity not only to be part of a fairly large public university, a university in the Texas A&M system, where I taught for 11 years. I taught both French, Spanish, and philosophy for that matter. And since I've been at St. Edward's University, I have taught French exclusively, and I have been the department chair for the last 7 years now. In our department, we offer 2 majors, both French and Spanish. French is a 33-hour degree, Spanish is 36, and then you have opportunities to minor in French, Spanish, or German. In addition, we have 3 critical languages. Those are Chinese, Japanese, and Arabic. And for those 3 languages, we have the opportunity to take a sequence of 4 different courses. So that gives you, in a nutshell, what we offer in our department. Here, I wanted to feature a brochure that we tend to share at different events on campus with students to get them interested in our various languages. So we have something like this for each language, and in a moment, Emily will be sharing something similar from Spanish. But I wanted to give you a sense here of what is needed in order to major and minor in French. And I wanted you to know in particular that what is popular these days is really to double major in a language. And this because our majors, 33 and 36 hours, are much shorter than in many other fields, like in the natural sciences or even business for that matter. So a double major with those other fields, or probably the most popular based on the numbers, we have more minors than anything else in French, Spanish, and German. And we noticed that it's especially popular to combine a language with global studies, for example, political science, English, business as well. And in terms of what you have to complete at St. Edward's, we do have a modern language requirement, and that requires that you go at least to the 2nd semester level or above. So we have an online placement test, and students get immediate scores that let them know where they've placed. You can imagine many students in Spanish place into more advanced classes since many of them speak Spanish at home. And so they only have to take a single class. But let's say you were interested in studying Chinese and you've never had it before, you have to get to the second semester level, which means you would take semesters 1 and 2, Chinese 1 and 2, or any other language for that matter. So on the next page, I have given you a sample of some of the recent courses that have been offered at St. Edward's University. These are upper level courses. So you normally would have 12 hours of French by the time you get to practical conversation. And once you've taken that, you can take any of the courses that you have beneath it. And all of these courses have been taught in the last 2 to 3 years. On the brochure, we also feature some of the popular activities using our languages outside the classroom, and those include things like the Mardi Gras masked ball, the Francophone Food Festival. We've had a couple of French film festivals as well. And you'll find that all of the faculty in the department will promote study abroad really as the best way to kind of solidify what you're learning in the classroom, an opportunity to be immersed in the culture. And if either you study abroad or you do some kind of internship abroad, it's the most practical way to really make use of the language you've been learning in the classroom. So I'll hand off to Emily here for this slide.
Hi, everyone. So I'm one of our Spanish professors here at St. Ed's. I probably won't talk a lot about this brochure. If you're watching the recording, feel free to just pause it and read through the information. But as Dr. Seminet mentioned, we have a placement test. And according to the level that you already have, whether you know no Spanish or you know lots of Spanish, that will determine where you start in our program. But I've even had students start in Spanish 1, students who didn't know any Spanish and eventually ended up with a major in Spanish. Maybe Philippe, you can go to the next slide and I'll talk about some of our classes. So just like in the other language programs, we also have courses for students who know not very much or an intermediate amount of Spanish. But once you get to the intermediate, high, or advanced levels, we offer lots of specific courses as well. Within the Spanish department, there are 3 full-time professors. 2 of them teach some really interesting courses on literature and culture. And I'm the one that does the linguistics courses and some of the applied fields. So as some of the examples of courses that you might have if you are at an intermediate, high, or advanced level in Spanish. So let's see, next semester, one of our literature professors is teaching a seminar on a Colombian writer, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. One of our professors teaches about political turmoil in Latin America. She has a course titled Dictators and Democracies. And I teach most of the linguistics classes, including advanced grammar, language and gender, translation studies, and our Spanish for Career series. So I can talk to you about some of those, and then maybe our current student, who's also named Emily, who is about to not be our current student anymore, can share her perspective on some of the classes. I would say that one of the myths that we sometimes see when students start out at St. Ed's is that if they already know Spanish, that there is nothing else for them to learn in a Spanish class. But we have students who have grown up their entire life speaking Spanish, but we can teach them linguistics. We can teach them to analyze dialect and register variation. We focus on differences in pronunciation and syntax so that we can determine where somebody is from based on their speech patterns. We learn to analyze how people who are of different genders and ages and social classes would use language differently to express themselves. Currently, I'm teaching a translation class. I think That's a very practical class for our students. Every time I teach the class, we work with the community and offer translation projects. In the past, let's see, a few semesters ago, we translated for a museum, and they still use our activity guide in Spanish. And we translated a parent-teacher handbook for a local elementary school, and they also still use our parent-teacher handbook every every August when they send out their materials to students. This semester in the translation class, which Emily is taking, a few weeks ago, I just sent off one of our class projects for translation to a lawyer who will be trying a political asylum case here in Austin this summer. And our students translated some articles for her that will be used in the case. So we don't know a lot of details about the case until it starts being tried this summer, but we do know that our materials and our translations will be used in the defense. Let's see, in addition to the courses, we also have internship opportunities in the community. Being in Texas, there's lots of opportunities to professionalize our skills and then put them in practice in the community. So sometimes we have students who work for nonprofits, particularly in social work and in legal assistance. We've had students translate and interpret at elementary schools. We've had them work on a census project, and some of our students had become particularly strong in grammar, also work for the department as tutors or TAs. So that's kind of a general idea of the courses that we have in Spanish. Maybe Philippe, you want to show some of the other courses?
So what courses were you referring to?
Oh, I was saying that maybe you could show some courses from other departments as well.
Oh, okay. Oh, you mean from other areas?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So as I was saying earlier, we have the minor, of course, in French and Spanish, but we also have a minor in German. German has been a very popular language we've noticed, particularly with the natural sciences. Our professor, Dr. Emma Walk, has done a tremendous job recruiting students from the natural sciences and teaching them about opportunities to either do research in Germany or to study in Germany. And she has also accompanied students to Germany. In addition, we're all the more fortunate to have her in the department because she is the director of the honors program at St. Edward's University. So you might meet her wearing that hat. And I'm very proud also to say that she was honored just this week as a Teacher of the Year at St. Edward's University. So German, if you're not from this area, perhaps you wouldn't know that there is German used in and around, I guess mostly around and beyond Austin in several communities like Fredericksburg. And I know students have done field trips to visit these communities and have also done something like I do with my students in French, which is, as you'll see in a moment in some pictures, take them to a high school competition and to serve as judges of the various events in the high school. So German is a popular option at St. Edward's. And now I want to share a little bit about some of the critical languages with you. As you can imagine, perhaps, it has been challenging this year to teach languages online. Emily here present can attest to how that's going since she's in classes both with me in the advanced conversation and composition class, which serves as a culminating experience for majors in French, and is also taking a course currently with Dr. Emily Bernate. So more challenging perhaps than French and Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, and Japanese, which require that students learn an entirely new script is all the more challenging when taught online. But nonetheless, we continue forward, and students continue and take advantage of opportunities that we have at St. Edward's University for them to study abroad and make use of these languages. In the case of Japanese, we're very fortunate to have a partnership with Asia Pacific University. And my understanding, I've never been, my understanding is that half of the courses at Asia Pacific University are taught in English and the other half in Japanese. But this is a very popular destination, particularly for students in the Global Studies program. And many of those students will study Japanese. Our Chinese professor is popular on campus because she's probably the most active of all of us in terms of extracurricular activities and celebrations. So you will see here in a moment some photos from some of those events. So yes, I wanted especially to give you a sense of how we use our languages outside the classroom and some fun things that we do. So I'm moving on to that part now. And I think, Emily, you were going to tell us a little about these.
Sure. So we also offer a lot of events on and off campus besides just the classroom environment. One of the things that we do every year, we have an induction ceremony for Alpha Mu Gamma. It's a national honor society for languages. You can see that the students receive their honor cords that they wear when they graduate. I won't tell you exactly what we do in the ceremony. It's a national tradition and it's rather cheesy, but I won't tell you what we do in case you decide that you want to enroll in languages and you excel and you can have the surprise for yourself. It's nothing that wild, but you know, I guess I won't ruin the surprise now. What about the next slide, Philippe? Okay, and we also offer an award ceremony every year. Of course, this year we can't have an on-campus event, but usually it's quite a big event. We have our top 2 students from every class come, and sometimes we have music from our university mariachi group, or our professor of Chinese does a Chinese dance group, and we have a big meal together, and some of the students' parents even come to congratulate them. So it's quite a fun event as well. Do you want to talk about some of the others, Philippe?
So the Modern Languages Mingle is an opportunity for us to share with students who are in other departments and often other buildings across campus the kinds of opportunities that they have by studying a second language. So we have colorful tables featuring all 6 of our languages with games and puzzles and student volunteers from within each language so that they can meet and chat with students who have already had some experience in the language. We also typically feature pizza as a way to draw students in. And again, we might use, for example, the mariachi band or some other music or group on campus. Kate, who is hosting the event today, you see her in the picture on the right at the table on the left-hand side. This is the Texas French Symposium. It is a statewide event held every year, and it typically features about 1,000 high school students competing in French. And we serve the best students at St. Edward's. I invite them to go to Houston, and we spend a couple of nights, and they serve as judges at various events for these high school students. The feedback I've gotten from this event is that our students at St. Ed's find it very rewarding to see and exciting to see the kind of passion that the high school students have for French. So that's always fun. We miss it. We've missed it the last couple of years, because of the pandemic now. As I mentioned earlier, our Chinese professor, Bonnie Yu, is very active and has several events like the ones you see featured here. She's actually in the photo at the bottom of the Chinese dance. That's her on the right-hand side. And then you have the Chinese Moon Festival. Another event in the top right corner is a Meet Your Major, which features majors for all of our school, which is the School of Arts and Humanities. And on the left there, you see our award-winning Dr. Emma Wolk, professor of German, whom I mentioned earlier. And then in the last 3 years, we have invited through the Career Services Office at St. Edward's University, we've invited professionals, some of them alumni, to come to campus and talk about the opportunities that they've had as a result of the languages that they studied in college. So this is a very practical, hands-on event that features a panel like you see here in the bottom right corner, and it is followed by round tables in the back of the auditorium there, at which students will speak individually with these various guests about their area. It can be, we've had somebody come in recently from different companies like Apple, the police force, the FBI, and we've often had a representative come from I'm drawing a blank now. Help me out here, Emily. Students who go off for 2 years to serve the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps is a really popular option with languages as well. Some more photos, fun things going on. Not long ago, we had a Congolese writer come and visit one of our French courses. On the right top there, you have, in fact, my background. You see Mont Saint-Michel. I was with students a couple of summers ago at our study abroad program in Angers, France. And those students go to Mont Saint-Michel and several other places together as a group. At the bottom on the right, you have another food festival, similar to something we do with French foods and Francophone foods. This we combined with others in German and in Spanish to create the Euro Food Festival not too long ago. And then finally, down here at the bottom left, you have a ceremony in which both Dr. Emily Bernate and Dr. Megumi, Maeri Megumi in Japanese, were honored with teaching awards. And incidentally, on the right there, that's Dr. Sharon Nell. She is the Dean of the School of Arts and Humanities, and she is herself a French professor. And I wanted to finish with a slide that captures the fun of Mardi Gras and getting all dressed up. So you have several students here, and you also have, I thought it was appropriate that we would feature the faculty, including two of those present here, myself and Emily, at a recent Mardi Gras event. So there you have it. I look forward to answering any questions you have.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Seminet. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of you for being here, first of all. I wanted to turn it over to our senior, Emily, to get your take on what led you to choose majoring in language and what kind of opportunities did you have as a student, whether it was any kind of projects or like the translation project Professor Bernate mentioned, study abroad. So just touching on your interest and your experience at St. Ed's.
Yeah, so I decided to major. I chose St. Ed's because they offered both French and Spanish as majors, because I knew right then that I wanted to learn a language and speak to other people in it. It made me always so excited. So I really wanted to develop that skill. And so when I did come to St. Edward's, it was the best choice ever made language-wise, because I really think teachers make a huge difference. And so my professors, like without them, I don't know if I would have been able to complete my French and Spanish major, just because it is difficult learning a new language, but it's really worth it. As for opportunities, I did get to study abroad for a month. It was a language intensive program in France, in Angers. It was really amazing. It was like my first time outside of the Texas vicinity, so it was awesome. I also did a translation. I think it was from French to English, for the Lone Star Advocate Project, to help someone get a visa to stay in the United States. Also, I have it written down. I also have the opportunity to go sign up for TAPIF, which I can teach French or English in France. So I'm going to hear back from them soon. So I'm really excited. But yeah, I've had a lot of. This is a really good school to choose if you're wanting to learn languages.
That's awesome. Professors, could you speak a little bit to any opportunities? Emily mentioned the TAPIF program. Can you speak a little bit to what that is, what the Fulbright programs might offer, or any other like post-graduation language opportunities that we can connect students to?
Yeah, since Emily mentioned TAPIF, I'll begin with that. It is very common for students who want to go to France after finishing college and continue to improve their French, to volunteer to work through the French government. They work at a school, essentially junior to high school level, and they go over as teachers of English. So they are expected to meet every week for so many hours with students, and also to lead some extracurricular activities. And there are numerous destinations all over France, cities all over France. I even had one student recently who went and enjoyed it so much that he requested to do a second year. So it is a nice opportunity, TAPIF. Again, that's through the French embassy here in the U.S. Fulbright is, of course, a very, very popular opportunity. It's a highly competitive event as well that gives you the opportunity to go to any number of countries across the world. So in the case of French, certainly France is one destination, but probably the most difficult in terms of the numbers of students who would like to be there. It's also to teach English, but it's extremely prestigious and extremely competitive. There are far more opportunities, I would say, in French-speaking African countries. Maybe a lot of people don't realize that French is kind of exploding in Africa. I mean, there are more and more people learning French in dozens of African countries. So that's a very popular destination as well. So that's and then finally, the Peace Corps is another opportunity after college, and that's through the U.S. government. And while teaching can be one possibility, you have several others as well that cross all disciplines. Myself, I had a roommate in graduate school who had spent 2 years in Cameroon and hence spoke French very, very well. His work was in the fisheries. He was helping build ponds, and then he went on to Tonga in the South Pacific to do another 2-year stint in the Peace Corps. So that's a great opportunity to volunteer. It's not something you get rich at, but experience-wise, you get very rich.
And I'll also add that We have an amazing track record as a university for Fulbright acceptance. It is not easy to get a Fulbright, and we even have Fulbrights in some of the countries that are the most sought after. We have a student who is just finishing up her Fulbright in Spain, and that's a difficult one to get. And so we like to think that we give students lots of opportunities to develop a social justice oriented project and work on their application with us and practice interviewing with us so that they are competitive in these kinds of scholarship programs.
We have a question from an attendee. Is the required placement exam exclusive to St. Ed's, or is it the CLEP exam? Can either of you speak to that?
Sure, I can tell you a little bit about the exam. CLEP credit is an option if you want to receive course credit, but we ask all of our students to take a placement test that is really the test that is most frequently used throughout all of the public and private universities in the US. So it's not exclusive to us, but it is the same kind of test that you would likely take at any other university. But every university is going to have their cut scores different. It's an exam that you take online and you click through, and it measures not your productive ability, but your receptive ability in a language. So how much you understand. So I do think that sometimes we have students that come out higher than they think they would, and they feel concerned before they start their language classes. But I would say that if you are nervous about your placement, it is the most widely used test throughout the nation. So it's you and everyone else taking it, and we feel pretty confident that it places students very well.
Yes, and to get to the receptive part you mentioned, it is a multiple choice test. So it is not a test in which you have to write and produce in the language. We administer it in the summer typically, but now it's of course moved entirely online. I have seen students take as little as 7 minutes to complete it, and others take just over 30 minutes. And the reason for that is that it uses an algorithm whereby if you get the advanced questions early on, it can very quickly move through a sequence to determine that your level is indeed very high. Whereas if you're missing some and not others, and it'll keep the algorithm will continue. But it's very important that you do your own work, because you want to make sure that you're placed into a level that is appropriate for you. So if you do a lot better than you thought you would, you might end up in a 5th or 6th semester class, and it's way over your head. So that's why it's really essential that you do your own work. We require the placement test of everyone. However, if for example, you're interested in one of our critical languages, Arabic, Chinese, and Japanese, and you've never studied them, you don't have to take the placement test, but you would be taking 2 courses of Arabic 1 and Arabic 2 in order to meet the modern language requirement. Whereas let's say you speak Spanish at home and you place into an advanced course, a 3000 level course. In that case, you'll be taking a single class in order to fulfill the modern language requirement in St. Edward's. However, because you can get so many hours through CLEP, up to 15, that can apply to the 120 that you need to graduate at St. Edward's, you can also use all those hours toward a minor and major. So many Spanish-speaking students have found it popular to go ahead and at least minor in Spanish, because they speak it at home, but they don't necessarily write it very well, etc.
That was very helpful. Thank you. Emily, student Emily, I have another question for you. What would your advice be to students who are potentially curious about studying a language or majoring in a language, but might feel intimidated? Actually, we'll start with Emily, the student, and then professors can answer. But I'm just curious, how would you sort of encourage students to overcome that intimidation?
Definitely keeping a dialogue with your professors about how you're feeling. I know my professor at the time was Matu, she's no longer here. I emailed her multiple times saying, really doubting, because learning a language it's a huge feat because you have to learn, well, it's important to learn like the culture behind it. And I've learned so much culture behind the languages. It's awesome, but it is hard and it's new. So definitely talking to your professors about your concerns about your own abilities and about other things bothering you, but also just remember why you started in the first place. If languages really like excite you and ignite that passion in you, then just remember that. And that's what I had to do that a couple times because yeah, it's a big feat, but it's so rewarding when you see yourself improve little by little, even if just by like one word. It's really cool. But yeah. Anything else I would say? Yeah, I would just say the professors are the best route to go if you're feeling discouraged or all that.
I know with like the global studies major, there is a required component for a study abroad. Is that the same of language to complete a study abroad, or no? I see heads shaking. What?
No, unfortunately, it's not. I mean, I in a way, I would like to say that you know, it's incredibly useful to address the anxiety that you feel in the classroom speaking a language that is not your native tongue. The best way to move beyond that is to be completely immersed, where it becomes natural, if you want to get by, to interact with the locals and to make the trip to the store and the restaurant and so forth, and use and build on the foundation that you established either on your own and or in the classroom, your hard work in the classroom. So I can attest that once you've spent a little while, and this can be just perhaps, you know, a month or so in another country and surrounded by another language, it really infiltrates the mind such that you will even begin to dream in the language. So it's worked its way into your subconscious. And things progress rapidly after that. It's much more difficult, for example, in French, to be in an American city where it's not widely used than it might be, say, in Spanish, where if you live in Texas, you can use Spanish as much as you'd like.
I have definitely found myself dreaming in French sometimes. There's no one there to fact check me on if my grammar's right, but I like to think that it's seeped in enough. I think I'll leave it open for a few more minutes for questions, if there's any last minute attendee questions, but any final parting thoughts from, we'll start with Emily, senior student Emily, advice to students in their college application process, their college search even, and then professors, if you have anything to share in that category, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, I remember as a senior thinking back, I wasn't sure what college I wanted to go to, so the search was on. I remember as soon as I stepped on campus, I hear this a lot from other students too. As soon as they stepped on campus, they're like, this is my home, this is it. And I did feel the same way. I was shocked like how much it felt right. So definitely listen to your gut, but also look at what the campus has to offer, look at what classes and what you would want to major in, and also the class size. Class size is very important. I grew up in a small town, so I was used to like the smallness. So it was nice for me to come to like these smaller, more personal classes. But of course, I hear that from people who come from cities, they enjoy the smaller classes and all that. But yeah, that's all I have to say that I can think of.
Well, I'll offer some final thoughts on language learning. I think that a lot of students, when they come into a language classroom for the first time, you hear your professors and the speech samples that they give you and the text that we're working on. These are models of native speakers, and so I think it's difficult to or it's maybe pretty easy to get down on yourself and feel uncomfortable and very vulnerable at the beginning, because you're not a native speaker and your models that you're listening to and working with are native speakers. And I think that sometimes students start with this unrealistic expectation that they'll sound like a native speaker. And I would encourage you to not think of yourself as trying to imitate somebody that is a native speaker if you're not a native speaker. That I would embrace your bilingualism in your language learning journey, and remind yourself that you know two languages, and so you sound like you know one language when you're speaking the other. And it's normal for you to sound like one of your languages is informing your decisions and your speech process while you're using another. You can't pretend to not know English if you know it, and it's going to influence the way you speak other languages. But that's not a bad thing. You can use your bilingualism to your advantage. And we find that people that learn languages and end up using two languages later in life end up being more compassionate, more empathetic, and better critical thinkers. Also, other benefits like their brain power lasts longer into old age. So there are many reasons why you should do it, even if it feels vulnerable and scary to you at the beginning.
I often in the classroom, particularly at the beginning of the semester and with first and second semester students, will address the matter of accent in particular. In French, there are a great many accents. The French themselves are rather particular to their own, particularly the folks in Paris, where you have by far the largest amount of people in France. And they might be, well, I don't want to say anything negative, but they have notions of what the language might or should sound like. And I go to great lengths to reassure students that the goal, to my mind, the goal in learning a language, another language beyond your own, first of all, it shows tremendous respect for other cultures, other peoples, other ways of life, that you're not expecting them to learn your language, but you actually believe in what they know and you want to learn more from them, so you're learning their language. So I think it shows so many positive things about yourself that you make the effort. So the goal really is to be understood. And what I like to do is share with students just how different it sounds when you hear somebody speaking Cajun French in Louisiana versus Quebecois in Canada and in the province of Quebec and in Montreal versus Paris or even the south of France. I spent a year and a half right after college in Switzerland, in French-speaking Switzerland. Le français, ça se chante, ça monte un petit peu, ça descend un petit peu. It's a very, it's a very melodic kind of French, but it's still French. We all understand each other. I haven't had trouble with people from many French-speaking countries, and I'm delighted by these accents too. I think they're fascinating. So I also remind students that when you meet people who speak English and it's not their first language, you're often, particularly like the French, you're taken by that accent. You're drawn into that accent. So you as an American speaking with an American accent, your French can be delightful for a great many people. So I honestly play down the accent. I mean, there are proper ways to pronounce words, but the accent itself is not something that students should worry themselves with.
Awesome. This is all very helpful insight. I sort of wish when I was a student at St. Ed's that I had these reminders. If students who are here today would like to reach you with questions or anything, I think you had some emails on the last slide, but where can they reach you? If you want to maybe share your screen again and show those emails for a moment, Philippe. If students have questions or anything, you can feel free to reach out to the admission office at St. Edward's, and we can get you connected to the various languages various language offices, or reaching out directly to the professors. But we want to thank everybody for being here today. We really enjoy getting to spend this time sharing, and makes me, really appreciate all of the different facets that St. Edward's has to offer and the opportunities for students, whether they are in Austin, on our campus, or anywhere in the world. So please feel free to reach out with questions or admissions, anything at all, language questions, inquiries, whatever it might be. So thank you again for being here today. Thank you to our professors and our student for representing us so well. And we look forward to connecting with you in the future.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for hosting us, Kate, and for giving us this opportunity. And I just would like to say a final word, and that is that indeed, we are a small campus. It is easy to interact with us. We really enjoy meeting with students. Generally, we know everybody by first name after the first week of classes. Emily, our graduating senior, can attest to that. And we're here to help you. I mean, we are invested first and foremost in your success. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And I hope to hear from you. Thank you.